Well, the president will march up to Capitol Hill and give his big State of the Union address tonight before those assembled in the House of Representative chambers. This is his last. Let's have a round of applause. The last presidential State of the Union address by Barack Obama. And sitting in that audience will be Representative French Hill, among many others, a Republican from the state of Arkansas, who's joining us now on the line to talk about this. You gotta love the pomp. You gotta love the ceremony. It's a lot of fun. I've covered tons of them, and I've been in the chamber and watched them firsthand. It's great, but if I had to ask you the question today, Congressman, what would you say the State of the Union is?
Well, the State of the Union in my district in Arkansas is one of uncertainty and brought about by the worst economic recovery from a recession that we've ever had. I mean, we have in 7 counties in central Arkansas, we've got only 3,000 more people employed today than we had back in July of '07. So for us, still, income and jobs are something that we've just never fully recovered from.
But Congressman, the president would say, hey, the unemployment rate is at 5.5%.
Well, that's great, but the problem is the employment participation rate has been a disaster, the lowest since the Carter administration. The ability of net formations of jobs, which in a medium-sized city like Little Rock, that's where all the jobs come from. We don't have big East Coast Fortune 500 companies doing all the employing. And that job formation rate, is also the worst since the Carter administration, that net job opening rate. And so, to me, that's still, when I travel the district, jobs and the economy are number one. And then they're distressed by the government's led by Obama's reduction in Americans' prestige and leadership around the world, and last but not least, particularly after San Bernardino and Paris, they question the president's resolve at defeating ISIS and keeping us safe. So, I think that's what I hear about at the coffee shop in Little Rock.
I bet. And let's follow up on that last point you made, Representative Hill, because according to some insiders at the White House who have spoken to the media, he'll address the terror threat, and he'll say, listen, we've got a great strategy here against ISIS, and it's going to work, but here's the thing you need to know. This is really, the media is pumping this up to be a bigger threat than it really is. Your odds of being killed by a terrorist is less than getting struck by lightning. So why? What are you so upset about? What's your response to that?
Well, and the typical rhetoric coming out of the Obama administration, people aren't interested in his explanations. They're interested in his leadership and his actions. And I'd simply say, look, he hadn't worked with Congress on protecting the homeland when it comes to border security. He hasn't worked with the Congress for vetting of Syrian and Iraqi refugees and potentially other countries. So this is just more Obama, where he just has we're in the, going into the 8th year of the excuse presidency. It's all about rhetoric. It's all about his perception of the world, and unfortunately, when the facts don't line up with his perception, we just get lectures, and that's what I expect when we disagree with it.
Now, the president has made it very clear that he's going to take some unilateral action, has already taken some unilateral action on guns, and he's circumventing Congress on that matter, not going back to Congress and having a conversation with him about that. We expect it's going to be a major part of his speech tonight. What would you say to the president, if you had the chance, about his new position on guns?
Well, I'd say, like so much of his approach on things, he shouldn't bypass the will of the American people and long-standing laws. He's done this as we all know, in executive amnesty efforts in immigration. Now he's turned his attention to guns, but he needs to let Congress do it and not do it by executive action, number one. Number two, the real challenge in our health is, in our country, in my view, is mental health. Since the Carter and the Reagan administration, we just have not had a good mental health program throughout this country. It's why I co-sponsored Tim Murphy's bill. The president just throws $500 million out in his gun announcement and then doesn't explain any context or how it would be used or the benefit of it. And I think when we look back at states that have not had mass shootings, you'll see a correlation with states that have excellent, more aggressive, if you would, civil commitment laws. and you'll see places where maybe their mental health services are a little better. So I would ask him to look at Dr. Tim Murphy's bill from Pennsylvania on how to take a different approach on mental health instead of lecturing law-abiding citizens on how they can buy a gun.
You know, Congressman, despite the fact that we have a pretty plugged-in audience, I'm thinking some of them don't know the details of Congressman Murphy's bill. Can you just give us a thumbnail of what that means?
Yeah, I mean, what happened was at the end of the Carter administration, going into Reagan, President Reagan decided that he would take federal money and block grant it out for mental health services to the states. And over the past 35 years, some states did a good job on mental health services, some did not. Then in the 80s, the Supreme Court had a lot of rulings on civil commitments. This is, every family has gone through this when they have a family member who has a drug or alcohol abuse issue and they're over 18 years old. You know, they have to want to do it. They have to want to do it. And so in the area of mental health, it's very difficult to get treatment to people who need it, even when you know it in your own family. So Dr. Murphy's bill, and Tim Murphy is a psychiatrist, the only one in Congress. We need more psychiatrists in Congress.
Right.
I'll say, yeah.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. And listen, thank you so much for joining us. Congressman French Hill, Republican from Arkansas.